we lost, I think, about 3 minutes of footage somewhere in there from a lag. Something happened that caused it to just drop somebody signal-wise. And I was like, I don't even know anymore. It doesn't tell me until afterwards. Like, even after I finished that video, when I finished the video, it said it was 31 minutes long. I went, cool, it got everything. And then I went back out to check to see what other videos I needed to take care of. And then I went back in and it said it was down to 28 minutes. And I went, what the? Like, you're dropping chunks of time. There's no excuse for it. I don't know why the camera or the computer or the internet connection is doing that. So if I'm a little paranoid about whether or not I'm getting any signal through, it's because I don't get an indicator that tells me if it's dropped me. So if I drop off and the video ends suddenly, that's what happened. I can't solve that problem. I can't even figure out why it's happening. So that's sort of one of the situations. But in the meantime, doing some planning and figuring out of where I'm going to go with the rest of the fitness and well-being stuff for the rest of the year. I mean, I have the plan that right now, yeah, it should be all right, but it's getting it started, getting it to pick up the signal so that I could broadcast. It fought me. It kept telling me the camera wasn't connected, which it is. It's right there. I connected it and disconnected it like 4 times. And I think they're also doing something weird with the indicators of who's watching, because I have at the top of my screen, I have a timer. It says I'm live. It says 1 minute and 48 seconds right now, and then right next to it, it says people watching 1, and then 0 likes right now, whatever. Now it says 2 people watching. I don't know if we have 2 people watching or if it's double counting 1 person. I did a recording the other day that was I used this camera. I did a live recording set to private so that I could go back into the editor and trim it and then set it to public. It's set to private. Nobody should be able to watch that. But I had 1 watcher. So I don't think that counter is right. And I think it's doing something weird with the signal. So I don't know if this is working half the time. And like, it's all the indicators that I need to use in order to tell whether or not it's working always tell me it's working and it's, I've got a viewer, which I don't always have a viewer. That's fine. But like, the incorrect information makes it harder for me to gauge whether or not I'm failing to achieve what I'm trying to achieve with a video. So yeah, I got to figure out some of that stuff. And one of the issues I'm trying to figure out is I'd like to get to a point where I could use OBS and use it to live stream stuff in a way that can allow me to include still images and video clips and things like that into one of these broadcasts. But this thing won't even handle a standard live stream half the time. I don't know why it's behaving so badly. And I've used the other laptop. That's the one I was using when we did the live cooking show, and the first 2 episodes of that dropped the signal too. So I don't know if it's something about the webcam working with the software, or that, whether or not Windows 10 point whatever random updates they do on a regular basis drops it out of functionality with the current hardware that I'm using to do some of this stuff, or if my internet signal is weak where I am. I don't know why it does this. And I don't think I ever got to a point where I might, in the next couple months, see if I can do some broadcast live casting from the Makerspace and see if being close to the middle of a city with higher bandwidth capabilities late night at the Makerspace would potentially make it easier for me to do that. The downside to doing it at the Makerspace is there's a good chance there's somebody using a table saw in the other room. And finding a room where I can sit quietly by myself and do a video, not always possible. I tried to see if I could work with them to arrange a designated uh, I guess we call it like a broadcast or a podcast station, um, so that people could set up audio, video recording stuff and live streaming capabilities. It's just there's limited space, and I was the only one asking about it, so there wasn't enough necessary interest in order to dedicate a certain amount of space to doing live stream stuff. And so the few times that I tried to do live streams, I think I did a live stream at the Makerspace, a couple live streams at the Makerspace when I did my first product development for that puzzle that I made, the tray and coaster set. And I swear, both of those times that I did those, somebody walked into the Makerspace and was asking who I was talking to while I was trying to be on camera. So it was just sort of like, that's not helpful, dude. It's really not helpful. I can't have you wandering into the room I'm in to interrupt what I'm doing. But yeah, it is what it is. I can't sweat it too much. But I'd like to see if I can get it worked out in the near future. I do think on topic of tonight, where I'm planning on health and fitness stuff, I've got a potential lined up part-time job on top of what I already do to bring in some of the income I need this season. And not only will it potentially enable me to secure some extra funds to increase my capabilities through maybe an upgraded computer system or something like that, but it's also going to mean that my time frame for being able to do certain things is going to be much more difficult. So in the case of what we're working on this week is health and fitness. If I'm working a part-time job on top of what I already do, I'm going to be out of the house for so much of the daytime that I'm probably going to have to eat at least 2 of my meals out of the house. And I'm not sure if some of the places that I've potentially got lined up for part-time work have a refrigerator at work. So my ability to transport selective dietary choices to my place of employment while most of my day is had outside of living space that I'm used to, it potentially means that it may be harder for me to transport and keep foods that I can eat. So it may disrupt my ability. I'm going to be gone for 6 to 8 hours a day minimum in many cases. And if I don't have a place to store food in a fridge while I'm doing that, then what I have to resort to in order to eat food during my 8 hours of being away, I may not be able to target a specific type of diet, and I think that would suck. I hope there's a way I can figure that out, because I want to continue to work on what I'm working on with that. But the other aspect of that is also the way I've been doing my fitness routine stuff has been to do like a week where I do a one short workout a day for like half a week to 4 or 5 of the days of the week, and then towards the end of the week switch it up so that I start doing this thing that I hatched onto at one point that seems to work really well for me is you do a certain percentage, like a 40 to 60% of what you could maximum do for a given exercise, and you do it every hour on the hour. And so while you're not pushing yourself to the point where you can't do anymore, say you can only do 10 squats, then your routine for that next day would be to do 50 or 60 squats, and then an hour later, after you're not even doing it to the point where you're so tired you can't do anymore. You're stopping yourself before you can't do anymore. And so you never really get to the point where you've totally fatigued the muscle. And so an hour later, you can do another set of 50 to 60 squats. And you just keep doing that with an hour rest in between. Means your body never gets to the point where it really feels like you've abused it. Now, to be fair, at the end of a day where you've done that for 12 hours in a row, you do get to a point where, like, oh yeah, 3 into that set of 10 or 3 into that set of 6 is, you feel it. You feel the burn of it by the end of it. But like an hour later, you've recovered enough that you can go again. So it's not so hard, but the problem with that way of doing exercise is everything about that works out really well for improving the fitness. The problem with that is there is no way during an 8-hour shift at one place or a 6-hour shift somewhere else that I can just stop in the middle of an hour and start doing some form of exercise. No employer is going to say, yeah, just go into the back and use the free weights for a little while. Maybe if I were working at a gym, and maybe I should look into that. I don't know. But I just don't think I'll be able to pull that sort of routine. Now, when I started doing my fitness routines, I started with do one a day until you're used to being able to do the exercise. And then you switch over to the every hour on the hour routine. And then gradually I started working it into a system where I would do 3 times a day, larger batches, so larger sets. So instead of doing 10 every hour on the hour, it would be do 30 and do 4 sets of 30. And that would get you the same number done in a day. And that worked. And then I gradually worked it down to, could I do it 3 times a day? And I did that. And then I did 2 times a day. And I got to the point where that worked well enough that I could do 2 1-hour routines. I could do something like that where it would be like the start of the day and the end of the day. I do an hour exercise routine. And then if I'm doing that before work and after work, that's totally fine. That would probably work. The other thing I've been doing for some of that is when I did the body weight exercises, I did that method. And then when I did the biking, I got to the point where I said, like, okay, can we combine them both into a single day? And instead of alternating back and forth or dominating one for a while and then dominating another for a while, I said, like, can I do a routine where I do, say, I think I tried to do 25 reps of the body weight exercises, bike for an hour, 25 reps on the body weight exercises, and then do it again at night. And that was about an hour and a half twice a day. And that worked out relatively well too. And then I started splitting it up a little bit further where I did, to see if I could get more body weight exercises in on top of the biking exercises. I was aiming for, because I know at my most active during a course of a day, during those days where I was doing, a certain number of reps, say 60% of my max every hour, or even some cases every 25 minutes, depending on the routine that I was doing that given day, I was getting to the point where I was doing 200 to 300 reps of that body weight exercise each day. And I was doing 3 hours of biking on another day. And so cutting it down to doing 100 reps of a given exercise in a day seemed like I was cutting it down a little too far. So I wanted to see if I could switch it up a little bit. So I did a round of, I think I did 25 body weight, half an hour bike, 25 body weight, half an hour bike. No, I'm trying to remember. I think one of the days I did 33 body weight reps of each exercise, 45 minutes biking, 33 body weight reps, another 45 minutes biking, and then another 33 reps of each activity. And that was like close to an hour and a half to hour 45 minute of exercise. And then I do that twice in a day. By the end of the day, I was getting pretty high up on my max number of reps in the day, and I was doing 3 miles of biking a day. And so that's something I had to stop doing for this month of diet, because I was easily burning 2,000 to 3,000 calories a day. And I can't do that and have my base metabolic rate be what it is and do well on 2,000 calories a day of keto diet. Like, no matter what I do, I'm liable to burn muscle and lose weight doing that. And that's counterproductive to what I'm trying to do when I figure out how my body responds to keto. So that would disrupt my ability to know how my body was responding. And so I needed to back off that. And I feel kind of bad right now because I know that I've done a few exercise days in the last week and a half, but not nearly enough. And I've not been maintaining what I had been doing. So I definitely feel like when I get back into doing it, I'm going to have some setbacks from the break that I took from it. But I'm kind of looking forward to not having to watch what I eat for a little while. When keto ends on Saturday night, I'm looking forward to being able to just go back and eat whatever I need to eat for what I need to do, and not be able to not have to worry about it for about a month. I think the next time I start a diet is when I do the high protein diet, and that's going to be I think in November-ish. Yeah, I think I start that on like November 1st, and I do that all the way till the end of November. And the last week of November is high protein, end of high protein diet, and the first week of weight machine or weightlifting. And so that's sort of where things will go. I'm not sure what those routines are going to look like, but as of Saturday night, I don't have to worry about what I eat and how many calories I take in and how much exercise I do in a given day. I can do whatever I need to do for me, and I'm looking forward to it. I think at this point I've learned enough about how my body handles keto to know that it's not overly disruptive. It's something I could do easily enough, and it's not super hard to do. I think if I were to be super strict about it, it would be hard. I've been very, very, very strict about it this last 4 weeks, to the point of, eating the same 3 or 4 meals that have pretty much zero carbohydrate in them. And that gets me a keto diet for 4 weeks with seeing exactly how my body responds to that. But there are better ways to do keto that are not that restricted. But at the same time, there's a greater risk of me overdoing other things if I get too much protein. Like right now, the thing I set out for when I started the keto diet was doing a 75% fat, 25% protein, and 5 or less percent carbohydrate. So I was looking to get 30 grams or less of carbohydrate. I think I probably hit about 10 or less grams of carbohydrate on most days. And on a few days, I even probably had less than 5 grams of carbohydrate. So I haven't had an issue avoiding it, but I am acutely aware of the fact that like certain vegetables will change the number of grams of carbohydrate you're getting in a day, and it makes it easier to approach breaking keto. And for me, like the mindset of like, should I be sitting there with a bowl full of meat, cheese, and like vegetable oils mixed together and worrying about like, ooh, I can only have 3 slices of green pepper because I don't want to push the edge on how many grams. Like, that's stupid. That is just a stupid thing to be doing diet-wise. So I am more likely to not worry about it too much. I will probably still be under 30 grams most days when I eat. I do think the biggest thing I'm more likely to have be an issue for me, and it's not really even an issue, is I'm more likely to end up with a higher amount of protein. I'm likely to probably look at a 50-50. 60-40 to 50-50 probably is where I'm going to end up with fat and protein levels. And that's just where I'm comfortable at, eating-wise. And the thing is, like, if I'm going to be doing heavy levels of exercises, that's probably better for me in the long run anyway. But protein does break down. Your body breaks it down and produces some of the glucose that your body uses. So you can risk failure of keto if you're not careful about it. I think it's still pretty hard to do that though. And every now and then, if I feel like it, I don't want to sit here and go like, well, yeah, getting like a 1 ounce bag of corn chips to make nachos on. Like, I'm not gonna sweat it. It's not gonna kill me. It's not a huge problem. It may kick me out of keto, but honestly, if a 1 ounce bag of corn chips is going to kick you out of keto for 3 weeks, then keto is impractical. It's not sustainable as a practical dietary system. It's an absurd approach to food. And the commercially available things to make keto more doable, so many of them use those artificial sweeteners, which I will tell you right now, that first week of this month, where we did taste tests of those every day, those things made me crave things all the damn time. And I strongly suspect that some of them must have caused an increase in, if not blood glucose, at the very least, insulin secretion, which is what you don't want on a keto diet. Your body kicking out extra insulin is likely to put your body into storing glucose as body fat rather than burning the fat you have, which I don't have an abundance of it myself right now. So that's not a huge problem for me. But the idea that you're trying to keep those insulin levels down because they're going to spike and cause your body to store things, or you're trying to burn what you've already got stored, if that's your goal, then those artificial sweeteners may be wrecking your ability to do that. And there's some people out there who have tested different artificial sweeteners to see which ones work in certain ways. And from what I've been able to detect, they don't all work the same for everybody. Different people can be kicked out of keto by some of those artificial sweeteners, whereas some people don't have an issue at all. And so it's sort of like hit or miss. Again, it's, figure out what works for your body and work with that. And I feel like these snack foods that give you the craving for things that you can't eat and may compromise, for me, I would almost guarantee you that it's kicking something on, either insulin or blood sugar. And that's not really an issue for my health, but it wrecks my ability to maintain a healthy diet during the course of the day. Like I can not be on keto and be completely fine. If I'm on keto and I eat one of those bars that I had earlier in the month, those will make me hungrier all the damn time. So if I just ate the same thing without the bar, I wouldn't have an issue. But those bars gave me an issue of craving and being hungry faster and more often. It's like, it just seems like it's a bad idea to eat that kind of stuff. And it's expensive as hell. Like, eating the commercially prepared keto-based suggested foods is expensive as hell. And if you make your own foods, it's still expensive as hell. There's an absurd amount of cost that goes into making your own fat bombs and getting the ingredients. Like, they're bizarrely specific food ingredients that are not readily available. So you're going to pay like $5 per ingredient that's going to make you food for 2 or 3 meals. Like, that's not how I spend money on food. I'm more of a, when I'm at my financially tightest budget, I can eat for a day for less than $1. Most days I err on the side of $2 to $4, sometimes upwards of $5 a day for food, but that's sort of pushing it. On a special occasion, like a family gathering or something, I have been known to go get a sushi or something, and then it's like, yeah, you're paying $23 for food that day. But yeah, like that cost, like the cost of basic day of very basic keto foods, either prepped yourself or bought in commercially prepared keto-based foods, it's going to cost you like 5 times as much as, well, it's going to cost me 5 times as much as I normally spend on food per day. I like it when my food budget is about $180 per month max, if I can. That's a good spot to rest at. If I were to be doing keto like this on a regular basis, like, I swear, like, there are some cheap ways to do keto, but one can only tolerate so much of that stuff. And that's part of what I've been hitting on this month, is just like, for the cost and the low carb count on the foods that I've been eating, and trying to make sure I get enough fat to protein ratio, like, I was probably doing about, for the first week, I probably spent about $120 on the first week alone. That's just not an affordable method for me. The next few weeks, I think I probably averaged about $5 to $6 a day food costs, which is not bad, but long run, that's still not where I would prefer to be. That's like an extravagant food budget for me. That's like treating yourself for a month. But the foods that I was eating were not treats. They were not things that I was like, oh God, I can't wait to eat that. Like, there was no part of that I was excited about. And so, like, to spend as much as I would spend on a week of treats in a week of food that I wasn't interested in eating, I don't want to do that anymore. And it's not a sustainable way to do food. Now, if I wanted to do keto foods that I could enjoy eating and that were tasty, it's going to cost me way more. And it's like, I don't see the point. It's not gaining me any advantage. Like, I'm not, not that I was looking to, but I'm not seeing any increase in muscle mass that I can see. And I'm not seeing any weight loss. And I'm not seeing any mental or emotional improvements. If anything, I'm more emotionally volatile, like I've been talking about. And maybe that's a point that other people want to be at, where they have that a level of emotional intensity on a regular basis. For me, I found it not my standard level of emotional reactivity. And so it was uncomfortable to be that volatile all this time. And so it's just like, for me, I don't think keto is an important thing for me to try to maintain. Now, I would almost guarantee you that during the course of my regular monthly eating, that there are probably 2 or 3 days a week sometimes where I drop down into a keto diet without even noticing or thinking about it. But, it's just like, it's not sustained. It's something that my body probably just, on the 3rd or 4th day of the week, I get too much protein or I get a little bit of a carbohydrate hit and I'm out of keto. And, what does it take? A day, 36 hours, 4 days to get back on track, get your body back running on keto systems? I don't know. I'm not going to spend the time worrying about it because I don't know that it does anything particularly important for me. Now, if you were just to do low carb base, yeah, I'm in low carb almost all the time, just because I got used to, for years, for my body not being able to handle carbohydrates. I would chronically get sick all the dang time. Every time, like, you give me a peanut, you give me a potato chip, you give me a corn chip, I would have gotten sick for like the whole bloody day. And so I get to a point where I just couldn't eat those things and not have a miserable, nightmarish day. So I just stopped eating them, and I got used to not eating that kind of stuff. And so it wasn't a real problem for me. And I just got used to it for a decade. That's how I ate. And after a decade of eating that way, like, pastas and breads, they don't have the same hold on me as they once did. And it was especially something I became aware of when we did the high carb diet. I became very much aware of the fact that, forcing myself to eat higher carbohydrate food courses was a little difficult. And when I did it, I was noticing things about how that diet reacted to my body that probably happened when I was younger and was eating carbs. I just didn't know it because I just considered that how you felt during the day. And so, like, I was much more able to understand and see those symptoms for what they were. And, having eaten without pretty much any carbs for a decade, being able to look at food and go, I don't want a slab of bread. I don't want these stringy noodles in the middle of my food that don't have any flavor other than starch. Like, they don't contribute anything to my food. There's nothing about that makes my food better. Like, rice, I could, rice cauliflower, and there's no difference in most of what I would use it for in food. I could julienne up some zucchini and dice that into small pieces and make little rice grains out of zucchini. And yeah, it's a starchier vegetable, but its carbohydrate load, its glucose load is negligible compared to rice. And like, I could see making sushi using zucchini rice easy. And it has a little bit more flavor and a presence and a nutrient profile other than just plain carbohydrate. that it's, yeah, I would almost rather do that. Zucchini rather than rice. Julienne up some of those types of vegetables and use them as noodles for a sauce that you make. And your sauces, they don't need to have corn syrup in them. They don't need to have honey and molasses in them. Like, that doesn't contribute anything much more than just a little bit of sweetness. It's sort of like when I was younger, like my mom used to give me garbage about the fact that I wouldn't use olive oil on my salads as a dressing. Like, I would just use a little bit of vinegar spritzed on top of it. She goes like, "Don't you use any oil?" And I went, "No." She goes, but like, I'm like, why would I use oil? And she's just like, for spreading it around on the. And I was like, I have plenty of flavor with the vinegar that I put on there. And she goes, but you need to cut the vinegar a little bit. I'm like, no, I barely have any on there. It's just enough to add a little bit of flavor. Like, for me, that's the way I feel about a lot of the sauces out there. Is if you have some salt, some oils, some spices, and some acids, maybe a little bit of herbs and spices. I already said a little bit of like a vegetable, like a diced carrot or pepper or pimento or something like that, some olive. If you put just all of that together, you can make an abundance of interesting sauces. And none of them are going to be aggressively carbohydrate loading your body. So you can add plenty of flavor, and the sugar and the heavy oil, honestly, are both things that are just fillers. They take up space in the food. They do change the flavor a little bit, but I found that if you're not used to them in your food, you don't miss them. Like making a ranch dressing, like making your own mayonnaise, adding some buttermilk, maybe some sour cream, if you want to make it more of a dip-like, and you add in your dill, your onion, your garlic, etc. to make your ranch flavoring. You've got a dressing there that tastes perfectly good as a ranch dressing. It'll taste a little bit off if all you're used to is the stuff out of the bottle. I figured this out when I was younger. I did an experiment. I made a batch of Chipotle ranch dressing at home, all fresh herbs and ingredients. And I was like, this tastes off. There's something missing from this. And for like about 5 or 6 hours, I couldn't figure it out. Like, what is missing from this? This has like a lot of the flavor profile, but there's something missing. And the people I had been living with also had a bottle, like a half a bottle of ranch dressing in the fridge. I pulled it out and I looked at the back of the ingredients and went, no, it can't be. No. Let's give it a try. So I took a couple spoonfuls of my ranch dressing. I put it in a bowl. I went into the cupboard and I got a bottle of Caro corn syrup. And I took just a little dot of that, added just a little bit, because I only had like 2 tablespoons of ranch dressing. And I mixed in that corn syrup into that dressing, and I'll be damned if it didn't taste just like the stuff out of the bottle. I went, why is there corn syrup in our ranch dressing? Why are we putting corn syrup on our salads? And honestly, at this point, having gone as long as I've gone with low or zero interest in carbohydrates in my food, a homemade ranch dressing that I made a few months ago when we did the first cooking of dressings and sauces. I made a ranch dressing out of fresh ingredients. I didn't put any corn syrup or sugar or anything else in it. It tastes fine. It tastes perfectly good. I added some chipotle to that, and I cooked up some chicken fingers, and I dipped my chicken fingers into the ranch dressing, and it was perfectly good. Doesn't need the corn syrup, but we've got it in a lot of our food. And when it's not there, if that's all you eat, if you eat stuff from the store and you try stuff that doesn't have the modified food starches and the corn syrups and stuff like that added to it, you'll notice the difference. It tastes weird. It tastes wrong at first. But it's not really wrong. It's just unfamiliar. You're missing something that you didn't know you were being exposed to on a regular basis. I can remember when I was younger, I used to love to go to restaurants and deconstruct their foods and taste them and figure out, okay, what do we got here? How could we do this? And do that at home. And I can remember the first time I did something from McDonald's. I did a Big Mac at McDonald's. I made it with real beef. I made my own dressing. Same kind of dressing that you use in a Big Mac, but it's just homemade versus out of a bottle. I cut my own vegetables, and I got a regular bun for it. And here's the thing. The bread didn't taste right because it didn't taste as sweet. The meat didn't taste right. I got closer to the taste of what the meat tastes like when I used veggie burger patties. And the dressing didn't taste quite right. And the cheese didn't taste quite right because I used actual cheese and not modified cheese product. So like that whole experience was like, this is what a Big Mac should taste like when it's a homemade Big Mac. And it doesn't taste anything like what you get out of the store. Because they're using weird ingredients, commercially prepared, filler-filled ingredients in their recipes. And so, like, it definitely changes the taste. But not in a way that you go like, oh, this needs a pickle. Like, no, it's in there. You're getting the wrong flavors from them because the stuff you're used to is wrong. But you think that's the way it's supposed to taste. And so, yeah, I don't even know how we got on that topic. We're at about 42 minutes in. I'm going to call it here for tonight. We got a couple more days of health and fitness content, and then I guess we're starting over again, aren't we? All righty. So I gotta head out. I will catch you tomorrow. Take care and have a good one. It's starting to lag again, aren't we? Yeah, for some reason, if I move too quickly, my screen starts to freeze up. All righty. See you tomorrow.